One of my favorite archetypes is that of the king. Their cocky arrogance and fashionable aesthetic emits a divine aura that leaves a lasting impression and steals the spotlight anytime they enter a scene. In that regard, as villains, these characters have some of the most entertaining defeats, because their starting place of considering themselves higher beings means that to be defeated, they must take a tremendous fall. So with that being said, I'm going to be taking a Marxist lens and analyzing one of my favorite characters in Medaka box, Miyakonojou Oudo, who embodies the archetypical king to the utmost extreme, and his relationship with his follower Yuku Hoshi. Spoiler warnings ahead, because I'm going to break down the climax of the second arc of Medaka box, and the characters involved. If you haven't read or seen Medaka, or if you want to reread it, my friends and I are doing a podcast series called Shonen Ronin, starring with Medaka box, and I highly recommend you check it out and read along with us. Oudo compares looking at the sunrise to looking in the mirror during the morning. To him, there's no question that everyone else is below him, and that their only purpose is to serve him. His abnormality, weighted words, represents this disposition by allowing him to transmit electrical signals to people that interfere with their motor functions. His one goal is to fulfill the FLAST plan, a plan aiming to basically use eugenics to create the perfect being, or in Oudo's case, to make unreasonable taxation, his other abnormality, allowing him to steal others' abilities, or get 100% effectiveness. Contrary, however, to his singular image of ego, Oudo's backstory isn't as straightforward. As a child, he learned of his abnormality and abandoned his family in fear of them taking advantage of his power. Living alone on the streets, he spent years trying to master his own power and trying to make sure his power didn't take control of himself. He still had the aim of becoming king, but he was aware of the danger his power possessed and intended to use it for good. It's only after he believes that he's mastered his power that the Kafkaesque horror of this backstory sets in. As Oudo stands before the freshman student body intending to tell them to live life to the fullest, what comes out of his mouth instead is an order to bow before him. Despite Oudo believing he was in control of his own powers, after years of training, he learns that he in fact never had control at all. As the audience, we don't learn how Oudo was taken control by his power, but I imagine it was through some form of circular logic wherein Oudo came to the conclusion that the only way to truly make the student body live life to the fullest was to take control for himself, to make the students bend to his orders. Even so, Oudo comes across as more than just a tyrannical ruler, as his power seemingly acts as a system that perpetuates itself. Oudo may be a king with the best of intentions, yet a system which entitles one as king inherently oppresses its subjects by causing conflicts of class interest. As I said before, Oudo's goal is to complete the FLAST plan, and to be able to use his unreasonable taxation at 100%, but might there be a reason his ability doesn't work at full effectiveness? To answer this question, we'll need to understand the basic Marxian economic concept of surplus value. Under the capitalist system, workers are given wages, but not all that they're due because part of a value a worker adds is taken by the capitalist in surplus value. In this light, Oudo is taking the surplus value of another's ability, and his FLAST plan aims to take 100% of their value for himself. This is the end goal of the capitalist system. It aims to exploit the workers as much as possible, and even if regulated, the system will do its best to step around such a roadblock. One can see this when companies move overseas to hire workers for less, and so forth. Just like his weighted words, unreasonable taxation also invokes the image of a Kafkaesque horror. The wage system is justified under the presumption that capitalists have taken a risk, but in reality, it is an exploitive cycle where capitalists make money off the poor. In order to meet his ends, Oudo can use weighted words to brainwash people. Medaka box handles brainwashing in my favorite manner, since Oudo simply can't take control of someone's mind. Instead, he must concentrate and alter their mind by sending the correct signals. He says it would take him at least 30 minutes to brainwash Medaka, but when it took him a shorter amount of time, it is explained that Medaka had a preconceived notion that Oudo merely accentuated. In such a manner, the ensuing fight between Medaka and her ally is more about her overcoming her own notions, rather than her merely breaking free from an arbitrary mind control. It comes across as more natural, since anything that causes one to change their mind is to some degree brainwashing. Just scroll through any social media feed and algorithms will bombard you with advertisements. Even this video, if I'm properly conveying my point, aims to change one's perspective. Inversely to Oudo's ability to transmit signals, Oudo has one loyal subject named Yukashi, who's an empath that receives the signals of others and machines. Unfortunately, Yuku Hoshi can't turn his ability off and is constantly cognizant of others' thoughts to a torturous degree. However, Oudo is his perfect complement, because when Yukashi reads his mind, he only hears one single thought: me. On a surface level, this is a tragic backstory coming to a happy conclusion after Yuku Hoshi meets his faded counterpart. But the subtext of this relationship, and especially analyzing it with a Marxist lens, paints a different picture. With such a perspective, Yuku Hoshi can be seen as having a self-affirming dependency on his subservience to Oudo. Yuku Hoshi willingly accepts that he has a hierarchical lower position than Oudo, and he takes comfort in it. I can't help but think back to the royal wedding, a televised ceremony funded with millions of public pounds, yet people tuned in to watch it for presumably pleasure. It broadcasts a fantasy that one can be simply born in or married into wealth and privilege, yet meanwhile there's a tremendous wealth inequality throughout the country. It's a narrative that those with power will be the ones to solve the problems of those who most need redistribution of wealth. But quite the opposite is true, since the systems that are currently in place are only meant to further the divide. Yuku Hoshi's character is slightly ironic, because he has many of the characterizations of an archetypical trickster, clearly seen by his use of tricks such as disguises and masks, yet he is content with his position serving Oudo. The trickster archetype is known for dismantling systems, and this can be seen clearly later in the manga with the character Kumigawa, who more closely follows the destructive nature of the trickster. Yuku Hoshi, on the other hand, is severely bound to Oudo, practically lost without him. Once he even states he can't consider Oudo a friend because they're not on equal grounds, and he later uses this stance to degrade the character Kikajima for being friends with Medaka, whom he considers to be an abnormal beast. Despite being fed the lies that eventually pave the way to fascism, Yuku Hoshi does have one ability that surpasses his dependency on Oudo. That is, his ability to open his mind to other people and empathize. Like most of the fights in Medaka Box, the battle between Yuku Hoshi and the Student Council Treasurer Kikajima has strong metaphorical significance. While Yukashi's ability is to read minds, Kikajima uses her high lung capacity from being a swimmer as an air cannon. She uses her ability to shout and reject the idea of Yuku Hoshi's that Medaka is too special to be friends with her. Thus, as she attempts to maintain consciousness in the room that Yukashi filled with sleeping gas, she is fighting a battle to make her voice heard. Yuku Hoshi eventually loses because not only does his ability to read minds cause him to experience her pain, but also he can't help but feel sympathy for her. He's even about to switch sides, but Oudo arrives to the scene asserting that Yukashi is not permitted to be moved by anyone but him. In such a manner, Oudo directly interferes with Yuku Hoshi's ability to feel empathy, aiming to direct Yuku Hoshi's loyalty towards himself. This is merely course of affairs for fulfilling Odo's version of the Flash Plan. It is based on sacrificing the weak, enabling those with power, and brainwashing everyone else to allow such injustices. It strips away the value of a worker, alienates them from their work, and places them in a lower class. Oudo presents himself as the only capable leader, due to his strength and his ability to keep surpassing himself. But in reality, his strength is derived by stealing from others in an act of complete self-interest. However, fear not, comrades, because there is an alternative Flash Plan presented in Medaka Box by the best character in the series, Kumigawa Misogi. Kumigawa's plan involves the destruction of the elites and the systems they created to bring about equality for everyone. He aims to destroy the systems which divide people and cause jealousy, to instead bring about peaceful and fulfilling lives for all. In the second part of this video, I will dive more deeply into Kumigawa's character, Oudo's defeat, and Medaka overcoming her brainwashing. But for now, thanks for watching, I'm Calliope, consider subscribing if you like this video, and as always, remember to smile.